This is another video in this series on the new G4 Guitar student management application. I'm going to specifically talk about the to-do list here, which is where you're really going to keep yourself organized and generally manage the way that you do things. So I'll just jump straight into it. You've probably seen an overview of this before. So what we're going to do here is we've got these different headings: priority, category, due date, to do, and link. So really just by clicking on any of those, you can sort it by any of those lists. So if I want to do it from D to A or A to whatever, then I can do that. Now if you click on the arrow there, you can see that I've got A, B, C, D, E, and then Z or Z, depending on where you come from in the world. And the idea is that A, B, C, D, E, it puts them into what I consider 5 categories. I think if you have more than 5 priorities, you start to lose track of it and it becomes meaningless. So as an example, I treat A as something that has to be done absolutely today, that it's really a priority. B, I treat as an important item, but it can be left to tomorrow, so something that really needs to be done within the next couple of days. A C is something that I would consider that needs to be done within the next week or so. A D is something that can be done within the month. So what you do is just at the end of the month, you look at all your Ds, A, B, C, Ds, and try and get it all cleared off. And then E is something that doesn't have a definite date that needs to be done. It's something that you want to do, but there's no actual date. And the idea is that you should still sort through those E's as well. So you've got this A, B, C, D, E. Now Z is something that's been done, and I'll show you something else with that in a minute, but it's really something that's been sorted. Once it becomes a Z or a Z, then it will be removed from this screen here. It'll still exist in your to-do list, but it won't be on the visible to-do list. You'll have to go to the back end to see it. So let's have a look at category next. Now under category, I'm just going to do this sort here again. You can just sort it however you wish. There's various categories here, and the categories are very simple and easy to use. You can even add your own categories if you like. Again, be careful not to add too many categories, because you lose track of it. One of the things about many of these applications that we see around on the internet these days is they allow you to do so much, and you end up with so many different things that you can't find anything. And what you want to do is move away from that internet type thinking and onto keeping yourself very organized and everything front and center. So I put what I consider to be the most important there. And if you do add, like I said, if you do add another category, just think carefully about whether you need that category before you do it. And while we're on categories, over here to the right, you can see we've got a show all and a hide all. So what this means is that at the moment it's showing all categories, but if I hit the hide all, it hides all categories. So in other words, nothing appears. But by clicking on any of those boxes, it'll just show that particular category. So if I'm working on accounts and I just want to get through those, I can just select accounts. I can tick off that just as easily, and then I can tick on something else. And I can also combine. So if I want to see these 3 categories, then I can do that as well. If I want them to all show, then I just go back to show all. So you can see it's a very handy feature to help you when you're dealing with particular tasks. It's well known that if you segment your to-do, in other words, you segment tasks, you work on one area at a time, you're more productive, it's less cluttered, and makes it very easy for you to do. Again, you've got due date here. Again, it's sortable, so you can go to the due date and sortable. So at the moment, it automatically sorts generally from the most important, in other words, or the one that is most due or overdue in the case. So when it's overdue, it'll go red. When it's still to come up, it will be black. So just, you can see the colors there. You can change that, of course, if you want to change the due date. So if I want to push this back, then I can do that as well. Where are we here? So you can just go to whatever date it should be. Now the to-dos also can be sorted. Just hit to-do and it'll sort in whatever order that you, in alphabetical order. Now the link here is for if you want to post an actual link to go to somewhere on the internet, then you can do that as well. And that's handy if you're doing something like Evernote, where you can have a note on a particular to-do. So for instance, you've got this flyer to be printed. You might put a link in there that goes to an Evernote where you've got a picture of your flyer or something of more detail. So again, rather than cluttering it up here, then you can add a link to go to somewhere else. And then we've got this crossed out I, and the idea with that is that marks it as Z, as I said before, and that will hide that. So it won't delete it altogether, but it will take it away from this screen. So it still exists, but it won't be on your main to-do list. And I'll show you that in a minute. Now this here is, if I click on that, that goes to a form of that same to-do. You can see it's exactly the same to-do. If I click here, I'll go back to where I was. So if I want to click on this one and see the form, and this is good if I want to put in more comments, if I want to add a second link as well in there, if I want to add a contact name there, so if I want to associate that with somebody on my contact list. So you can see you've got more options there as far as your to-do list is concerned. Now, at the bottom here, you've got the list, so I'll click on that in a minute, but before I do that, you can see it's got the created date here, and it's also got a delete button. So if I want to delete that altogether, I can just click on there. It'll ask me first before I delete it, but what that will do is it will permanently delete it. So that's, if you want to delete it permanently, that's great, but be careful if you didn't mean to delete it, because you can Z it like I was going to show you before, and that's where I click on here. So this won't delete it, but it will take it off this list here. So if I go to the list, which is here, then you can see that everything is here, and you can see there are some down the bottom that are marked Z, and by clicking on those, then you can either bring that back into Vogue by clicking it there and saying, okay, I want it back to be an A priority, and bang, and it comes back online, and then it'll appear back on your main list again. So that's really all there is to it. There are a couple of extra features down here where you can send yourself the A list by email, or you can send yourself the overdue list. So by A list, I mean any that are marked with A priority. So it'll just send you an email with all those on it, and the overdue is it'll just send you all these red ones. And so maybe you're busy. This is a good little feature. So you're busy, you just logged in, you've got a few urgent calls, so you think, well, I'll just remind myself by sending an email or an overdue to email, or you might want to send that list and then forward it to somebody else for some reason. But that's what that's there for. We can even set it up. This is possible. We haven't done it yet, but it's possible to set it up so it automatically sends you an email every time you open your program. But you may not want to do that. I think you might end up with a lot of extra emails if you do that. It's all here anyway. As long as you're logging in here, you should be able to see everything you need to do. Okay. So that's really all there is to the to-do list. So I'll end it there, and if you have any questions regarding this, then let me know. But it's meant to be very easy to understand and very intuitive. Thanks again.